Welcome back to the Primary Election Candidates Forum. We will now be interviewing our State Representative District 53 candidates. The candidates with us this evening are Roy Edwards and Christopher Knapp. And here's an introductory statement from our candidates. Candidates, you have 1 minute. Let's begin with Roy Edwards.
Hello, I'm Roy Edwards. I'm running for House District 53. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and all of those who worked to set this up. And I want to thank the citizens of Gillette and the voters of Campbell County. I've been married to my wife for 37 years. I have 3 children, Mitch, Mariah, and Mason, all live in Wyoming. I was born and raised in Campbell County, in southern Campbell County. I was on the Gillette City Council for 12 years, and I was a county commissioner for 8 years. And I would like to represent you in the state of Wyoming and Cheyenne with the needs that I see that we have a problem with federal overreach in about every area that you could think of. They are trying to expand further out. I would like to see us get our federal lands back. I would like to see the federal government out of our education and the EPA out of our state.
Thank you. And now, Christopher Knapp.
Thank you. Thank you again to the League of Women Voters, GPA, the City of Gillette, and Basin Radio for this opportunity. I'm Christopher Knapp. I own 2 businesses here in town. I act as the president of one and the director of operations for the other. I'm a lifetime Republican, stand for conservative principles. I believe my 12 years of work as a county commissioner helped me to understand the local mandates and programs legislated at the state level. I want to ensure local governments are representative, reserves are maintained, and that Wyoming state rights are kept in high priority. I'm a 5th-generation Campbell County resident, have served on over 15 boards, understand budgets, and the issues facing Wyoming. I've also experienced overseas participating in delegations sponsored by the U.S. State Department during the Bush administration to South Korea and Japan, and I hope that experience will help me to support Wyoming's mineral and agricultural industries to strengthen new and existing trade markets.
Thank you. Now for the first question, which goes to both candidates. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. If elected, what do you hope to accomplish? And we'll start with Christopher Knapp.
I think the first thing is to listen, to learn, and then finally to lead. And the things that I would work on especially is fiscal responsibility, not dipping into the rainy day fund, protecting and growing all of Wyoming industries, and defending our freedoms. One of the most important reasons I've decided to run is the attack on what I see as all the states, our freedoms, our way of life, our jobs. I would keep that as a priority in my one vote in the legislature.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Roy Edwards.
I would like to see, as a legislature for Campbell County, I would like to see Highway 59 completed as a 4-lane road. I will work to have that done. I would like to see the minerals in Wyoming to where they didn't have the burden of regulation that the federal government is putting on all of the mineral industry through the endangered and threatened species and the logging industry that has a problem with the pine beetle. I would like to see the state of Wyoming take over those federal lands where we could take over control of that ourselves. And most of those problems we have with these critters that the federal government seems to think need help with, which one of them is a black-tailed prairie dog, which they think there's not enough of in Campbell County. And the plague helps keep them under control, and the federal government doesn't think there's enough of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will be for Roy Edwards. You have 1 minute to respond. In reference to the rainy day funds question from the questionnaire we sent, you said, there is a difference between a need and a want. What is your definition of a want and need at the state level?
In wants and needs, there's a lot of difference between a want and a need. There are those who have a specific interest in something and they think it's a need for their self when it's actually a want. They want you to pay for what they want. And I agree that we need to make sure that those needs are met and the wants are not messed with, because they are ones that individuals, private enterprise, should keep and take care of for themselves.
Thank you. We'll now give Christopher Knapp 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Well, I believe the rainy day fund should be a full depreciation of the state's assets, so that interest takes into consideration future inflation, and that fund then funds the future when revenues are down. We've done the same thing at the local level with the county and put depreciation accounts on every building that we have, maintenance accounts on every building that we have, so that in the future, we know that those assets are taken care of. And I would trust that the rainy day fund would serve the same accomplishment.
Okay, thank you. Our next question will be for Christopher Knapp. You have 1 minute to respond. In your questionnaire, you said there's an old adage that when revenues are good, you replace or repair aging infrastructure or put away in depreciation accounts the money to do so later. Do you feel revenues are good now? And if so, what criteria would you use to balance the spending on aging infrastructure versus putting money away?
I do think revenues are good, and part of that's due to the increase in oil with the drop in coal, but you can see it in our own schools. Lakeview's getting ready to open. Many of our schools have been replaced during this good period. And I think that's what any good businessman, any good rancher would do, is when times are good, you replace that fence, you replace that old truck, but at the same time, you put away for the future. I don't believe that new programs or new spending should come up when times are good. I believe that you take care of what you can to replace that which needs replaced.
Thank you. Roy Edwards, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Could you repeat the
Certainly
question
could.
that you asked him, please?
In the questionnaire, Christopher said, there's an old adage that when revenues are good, you replace or repair aging infrastructure or put away in depreciation accounts the money to do so later. The question to him was, do you feel revenues are good now? And if so, what criteria would you use to balance the spending on aging infrastructure versus putting money away?
I believe that the state on their infrastructure needs to look at the interest of the state. I believe that the state with the State Farm Loan Board, as it used to be set up, was good for the counties. And I would push to have that reinstated the way it used to be whenever times got hard for counties that were in a boom would be able to get relief that they're not able to raise on their own. And I think that that Wyoming needs to leave in the private enterprise what needs to be private.
Thank you. We will now move on to closing remarks. Candidates, you have up to 1 minute for closing remarks or to address any topics that were not covered in the questioning period. We will begin with Christopher Knapp.
Well, I believe the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Edmund Burke said that once. And I believe every candidate tonight stands up for those principles of freedom, the Second Amendment, the way of life that we've earned, our jobs, our land, our water. That's one of the reasons that I'm running. I believe my experience in dealing with relationships with past elected officials and leaders at our state, our local level. One of the things I believe is that our team has been so effective because while each of them had their own strengths, they worked together as a team. That's what I plan to do when I go to the state, is listen, learn, and lead. Thank you.
Thank you. Roy Edwards, your closing remarks.
As I said earlier, Wyoming 59, I believe, needs to go to a 4-lane road. I believe that our money that we spend, I will not support any more taxes, as I sent out in one of the questionnaires that was given to me. I believe that what the state gets is enough. All we have to do is to make sure that it goes to where it needs to go. I am physically responsible. I believe that as I was on the city council of Gillette, I believe that the city needs to be debt-free. I believe that in whole heart. I am debt-free personally, and I would like to see us as Campbell County to go down there to help straighten the problems that were created. One of those, I believe, was when they tried to replace Indy Hill with a appointed a position. I believe it still needs to be represented by the people of Wyoming. We voted them in, and we need to keep the voters involved. Thank you.